My boss stole my promotion-winning project and presented it as his own. He never saw the epic downfall coming, and that was the whole point.
This wasn't some crime of passion. It was a flawless sabotage I built using his own incompetence against him. Let me tell you how I turned the biggest client presentation of the year into the public end of his career.
For 6 years, I'd been a senior data analyst at a mid-sized logistics company we'll just call Apex Haulage. Apex was a decent place to work, but it had a serious case of little dog syndrome, always nipping at the heels of the industry giants.
I was good at my job, really good. I wasn't just crunching numbers. I was an architect. I made data tell stories, sing, and predict the future. My reviews were stellar, and I was the person everyone came to when they were stumped. I basically lived on coffee and complex queries, and honestly, I loved the challenge.
My boss was the director of analytics, a guy named David. David was the kind of manager who reads the first chapter of one management book and figures he's mastered the entire art form. He was a master of buzzwords, a black belt in taking credit, and fluent in corporate jargon. For the executives, he had a charming smile. For us, a condescending pat on the back. Technically speaking, he was a ghost. The guy couldn't write a single line of code, thought SQL was a sequel to a movie, and his grasp of our data infrastructure was, let's say, abstract. He managed by walking around asking, "What's the synergy here?" and then repackaging our team's work into his own strategic insights for the C-suite. We all knew it. But in the polite theater of corporate life, we just played our parts. For months, rumors were flying about a huge potential client, a global retail giant I'll call Global Omnicorp. Landing them would completely change the company, taking Apex from a mid-market player to a real contender. The problem was, Global Omnicorp's logistics were a complete nightmare. We're talking petabytes of chaotic data from hundreds of distribution centers. They needed a partner who could not just move their stuff, but also make sense of their chaos in real time. Our CEO basically laid down the gauntlet. Build a system that can tame their data beast, and you can write your own ticket here. And that's how Project Chimera was born. It was my baby. For 6 solid months, I poured everything into it. This wasn't just a fancy dashboard. It was a fully integrated, real-time analytics and logistics prediction system. Think machine learning models that optimized shipping routes based on weather patterns, social media analysis that predicted demand spikes, and inventory algorithms that fixed shortages before they could even happen. I was pulling 80-hour weeks. I missed birthdays, canceled vacations, and lived on takeout I ate at my desk at 10 p.m. I architected the database, coded the models, and designed the entire UI from scratch. It was the most brilliant thing I'd ever built. Everyone knew Chimera was my project. My name was on every line of code and every design doc. The deal was clear. When Chimera succeeded, I'd finally get the lead analyst promotion I'd been working towards for years. After 6 months of grinding, it was done. Chimera was a masterpiece. It was powerful, sleek, and it worked perfectly. When I demoed it for my own team, they were speechless. The next step was the formal presentation to our executive board, the final hurdle before showing it to Global Omnicorp. My promotion felt so close I could almost taste it. The day before the big presentation, David called me into his glass office. He had that fake, toothy smile plastered on his face, the one he always used when he was about to ask for something completely out of line. "Alex, have a seat," he started, steepling his fingers. "I've been reviewing the final build of Chimera. Incredible work, truly. A real team effort." A knot immediately formed in my stomach. A team effort? I just nodded, waiting for the other shoe to drop. "The board is incredibly excited for tomorrow," he went on, "and the Global Omnicorp team flies in next week. This is the big one. That's why I've decided it's best if I handle the presentation." It felt like all the air had been sucked out of the room. I just stared at him. "You're presenting voice barely a whisper.
"Absolutely," he said, practically oozing false confidence. "A project of this magnitude needs to be delivered with a certain level of strategic oversight. It has to come from a director. It's about selling the vision, not just the technical details. You understand?" No, I didn't understand. He was stealing it. He was going to stand up there in front of the board, and then the client, and take a bow for my 6 months of blood, sweat, and code. "I'll be sure to mention your significant contribution, of course," he added, like it was some great consolation prize. "This is a win for the whole team. When the department succeeds, we all succeed."
That was it. That was the line. The casual, smiling theft of my work, gift-wrapped as corporate wisdom. I'd seen him do it to others on a smaller scale, but this was different. This was my career. I didn't say a word. I just nodded. A strange, cold calm washed over me. I wasn't seeing red. I was seeing ice. In that moment, looking at his smug, self-satisfied face, the plan started to form. He wanted to present my project? Fine. I would give him exactly what he deserved. This was the moment the game changed. And if you've ever had that soul-crushing feeling of being stabbed in the back at work, do me a favor and hit that like button so I know I'm not alone. Now, let's get to the plan. My revenge couldn't be sloppy. It had to be poetic. It had to weaponize his one fatal flaw, his complete and utter technical incompetence, wrapped in a shell of supreme arrogance. He wanted to be the star, but he had no idea how the stage was built, so I decided to build him a trap.
First, I needed the perfect bait. David didn't want to understand the system. He just wanted to look like he did. He loved shiny, impressive-looking tricks. So the next morning, I went to him with some manufactured enthusiasm.
"David," I said, "I had an idea last night to make this presentation unforgettable. Forget the boring PowerPoint. I've built the whole presentation right into a modified Excel file. It's an interactive dashboard that pulls live data from Chimera. You won't just be telling them how it works, you'll be showing them." His eyes lit up. Interactive? Real time? He loved those words more than his own family. "Exactly," I said. "It'll look like you have the entire system at your fingertips. It's way more impressive." He bought it completely. He had no clue that a real system would never run through an Excel front end, but to him, it sounded cutting edge. This Excel file was my Trojan horse. Inside this file, I went to work. I embedded a series of complex VBA macros, a programming language inside Excel he didn't even know existed. These macros were my little digital assassins, just waiting for their signal. And the signal had to be something he would absolutely, positively do. I wrote a simple, step-by-step script for him to follow, a script he was too lazy and arrogant not to use word for word. The climax of the presentation was a slide on the projected return on investment, featuring a huge, beautiful chart showing millions in savings. In the script for David, I wrote, "At this point say, but let's not just look at the projection, let's drill down into the live data. Then you will double-click the main bar on the chart. This will trigger a live query and show the granularity of our analytics. It will be the showstopper moment." It was definitely going to be a showstopper, just not the one he was picturing. That double-click was my trigger. Once he did it, a macro would start a precise 3-stage cascade of failure. Stage 1, it would instantly sever every data link in the file. All the charts would flatline. Every table would fill with that hideous #ref error. The whole dashboard would die instantly. Stage 2, as he started to panic, a series of fake error messages I designed would pop up. These weren't your standard Excel errors. I made them look like deep, catastrophic system failures. The first one read, "Kernel 32 Dynamic Link Library Fault.
Memory reference error at 0x001F3C7A. It's complete gibberish, but to the non-technical execs in the room, it would sound like the computer was having a digital seizure. Clicking OK would just make another, scarier one appear.
Stage 3 was the master stroke. While he was frantically clicking, the macro's final command would execute. It would change the background of the presentation slide. I needed something that would humiliate him personally and professionally. David was insufferably proud of his fantasy football league, always bragging about his managerial skills.
A little digging on the public league page gave me exactly what I needed. The macro would replace the slide background with a full-screen screenshot of the league's standings, showing his team, the Office linebackers, in dead last with a pathetic 1-7 record.
But I wasn't done. I needed an exit strategy for me, and one last nail in his coffin. I created a separate, clean, and even better version of the presentation on my personal laptop, ready to go.
And for David, I made an emergency backup. I took a cheap USB drive and put one file on it, emergencybackup.exe. I told him, David, if the network acts up, just plug this in and run the file. It'll restore a local version of the dashboard.
He nodded gratefully, not even questioning it. Of course, the .exe file did nothing of the sort. It was a simple script that would silently launch dozens of programs in the background, consuming every bit of the computer's RAM and CPU until it slowed to a crawl.
I handed him the sabotaged Excel file and the poison pill USB drive with a smile. You're all set, David. Just follow the script. You're going to kill it.
The day of the global OmniCorp presentation came. The air in the boardroom was thick with anticipation and expensive cologne. Our entire executive team was there, CEO included. Across the table sat the global OmniCorp team, all sharp suits and skeptical looks.
I took a seat in the back, playing the part of the humble tech support, my heart pounding a steady rhythm against my ribs. David stood at the podium, soaking it all in. He started the presentation, and I'll give him this, he was smooth. He moved through the opening slides, his voice dripping with confidence.
He was using my words, my narrative, and selling it as his. He talked about synergy and paradigms and holistic solutions. He was putting on the performance of his life.
Then he got to the centerpiece, the ROI slide. The beautiful chart showing a steep curve of savings filled the giant screen. The clients leaned in. This was the moment.
This forecast is impressive, David announced, a proud smile on his face. But it's just a static image. The real power of Chimera is its dynamic, living core. So let's not just look at the projection. Let's drill down into the live data.
He turned to the screen, radiating smugness. He gave a little theatrical flourish with the mouse, and then he double-clicked the chart.
For one beautiful second, nothing happened. Then the dominoes started to fall. The chart's vibrant colors vanished, replaced by a graveyard of #ref errors. The data tables went blank. You could hear a quiet gasp from our side of the table. David's smile froze, then completely collapsed. Just a momentary glitch, he stammered, his voice suddenly 2 octaves higher. He clicked again. Nothing. He started clicking furiously, the frantic tapping filling the dead air. That's when the first error message popped up, big and ominous. Kernel 32 Dynamic Link Library Fault.
The client's tech lead raised an eyebrow. Our CEO's face was turning to stone. David, now visibly sweating, jabbed the OK button. A new, more terrifying error box immediately took its place. He was caught in my loop. In his panic, his frantic clicks landed on an invisible button I'd placed, and the final payload deployed.
The error messages disappeared. The dead chart vanished. The entire screen was replaced with the Fantasy Football League standings. There, for everyone to see, was David's team, the Office linebackers, sitting in 12th place, last place. A wave of confused silence washed over the room, followed by a barely suppressed snicker from a junior exec.
I have a backup, David yelled, his voice cracking. He lunged for his briefcase, yanked out my USB drive, and jammed it into the laptop. He double-clicked emergencybackup.exe like a drowning man grasping for a life raft. And then, the final, beautiful failure. The computer didn't crash. It just gave up.
The cursor started lagging, tracing a slow, agonizing path across the screen, seconds after he moved the mouse. The machine was being suffocated by all the invisible processes I'd unleashed. The presentation was over. David just stood there, bathed in the glow of his own failure, utterly defeated.
Our CEO, a man who prided himself on ironclad control, stood up. "Let's take a 15-minute coffee break," he announced, his voice dangerously calm. He didn't even look at David. The clients filed out, whispering to each other. David remained at the podium, a statue of pure panic.
This was my moment. I walked calmly to the front, past the wreckage of David's career, and approached the CEO. "Sir," I said, my voice steady.
That looked like an unfortunate hardware failure. The file must have been corrupted. However, I have a stable, full-featured version of the Chimera system running on my own laptop on a separate drive. I can walk the clients through the actual architecture and run live simulations, if you'll allow me.
The CEO looked at me, then at the frozen screen showing David's football shame, then back at me. He saw incompetence, and then he saw a solution. "Do it," he said, without hesitating. When the clients returned, David was gone. I was at the podium. I plugged in my laptop, and for the next hour, I gave a masterclass. I went deep into the code, explained the machine learning models, and ran complex queries in real time. I answered every single one of their technical questions with the confidence that only comes from building something from